From Amateur Radio Newsline Report number 2029, these are the Ham Nation headlines for Wednesday, September 21st, 2016. This is a special report on the huge announcement out of Washington, D.C., that the House of Representatives passed H.R. 1301, otherwise known as the Amateur Radio Parity Act. Paul Brown, WD9GCO, has more.
The measure now goes to the Senate for similar discussion and vote. While this is great news and brings hams one step closer to potential freedom from restrictive land use rules and covenants, one ham would like us to remember that we also need to work on our state legislatures to pass companion bills to strengthen the message of H.R. 1301. Larry Scantlin, KE0KZ, has been directly involved with a similar bill in Missouri. Scantlin moved back from Florida when he retired and into the house where his new wife had been living in Wentzville, Missouri. Shortly thereafter, he decided to become active in ham radio again. And then came a surprise.
A friend of mine gave me a vertical antenna. I put it against my deck. My wife and I went on vacation to Branson, came back, and I had received a letter in the mail from the city of Wentzville informing me that I was in violation of city ordinance by this antenna. Well, I thought that was rather strange. I was well aware of HOA issues, but not with the city. But the bottom line is I was able successfully to get them to change the ordinance in favor of ham radio operators. Not just me, but there are approximately 100 licensed ham radio operators in Wentzville. Not only did their ordinance restrict outside antennas, but it was written in such a way that you couldn't even have amateur radio equipment inside of your home unless you filed a request to have that equipment in your house. You had to actually file and pay a fee.
That experience opened his eyes to the potential plight of others.
In that process, I discovered the reality is I'm not the only one who deals with these kinds of issues. And more importantly, with respect to the HOAs. And as I became familiar with what the Amateur Radio Parity Act was on the federal side of things, I felt like oftentimes it's the states who end up determining these things anyway. We're independent United States. And oftentimes, even though there may be federal legislation, it's always helpful to have a companion legislation at the state level. That gives it that much more weight in the legal course of action that ends up happening.
Scantlin and his team managed to get a bill sponsored by their local representatives and then got good news, followed by bad news.
We were able to get through the House. We successfully won all of the votes, all of the challenges through the committees, the two committees that had to go through, as well as the full House floor debate and vote. And then it was submitted to the Senate. And then we started the long, hard process again of trying to, relay to the senators just how important this was. It was submitted to committee, and on the committee was two or three people that were very pro what we were trying to accomplish. Unfortunately, the chairman of that committee, for whatever reason, took the position to table the matter, said there wasn't enough public interest. And I found it very, very concerning that one man could make a unilateral decision, even after the House representatives. But even after all that, and there were several people who were on his own committee that were, wanting this to move forward in debate, he alone made his decision to stop that.
Larry intends to keep fighting and will work to get the bill brought back up before the Senate. He wanted to emphasize that even if restrictions don't affect you now, you never know when life may dictate that you have to move, and you may very well end up without the ability to practice amateur radio. So it's important to all hams to get behind efforts such as these and what the ARRL is doing in Washington. He also said that it was crucial for all hams to get the word out to the community about what amateur radio really is, how we are all tested and licensed, and provides a crucial communication service in times of emergency. In other words, we all need to work together to build up our image. For the full conversation, please go to our website, arnewsline.org, and click on the Extra tab. We also encourage you to write to your senators in support of H.R. 1301, as this is critical to the future of our hobby here in the United States.
For more on this week's Amateur Radio News, please listen to the current Amateur Radio Newsline report on a repeater near you or online at arnewsline.org. And be sure to visit the Extra page for the full 19-minute interview. And that's all from the Amateur Radio Newsline, your independent source for amateur radio news for 4 decades and counting at www.arnewsline.org. With Paul Brown, WD9GCO, Karen Eve Murray, KD2GUT at the news desk in New York, and our news team across the globe, I'm Don Wilbanks, AE5DW 73. We'll see you next time here on Ham Nation.